Welcome back to a very special episode of Mr. Tilly's Mathemagics, where we go on with the properties, perimeter, and area of a circle. Now, I call this a special one because we're actually going to change up the language a little bit here, and it's not so much the properties of a circle anymore as much as it is the features of a circle. Now, let's jump right in and demonstrate or learn about some of the features of a circle. Now, there are three really important parts of a circle that we need to remember when we are going to be considering things like perimeter and area. The first thing we want to remember when it comes to a circle is that we no longer call it perimeter, though it still means the same thing. Only now we're going to call it the circumference. And this is just our mathy word for saying it is the distance around the outside of our circle. But because it's round now, we want to really distinguish it different from other shapes. The next really important thing we want to look at is called the diameter. Now, the diameter is the distance from one side of our circle to the other side, but it's very important that this has to go through, let's go back, through the middle. Now, what this means is there's no point saying that this here is the diameter, because that is something that is completely different. The diameter, if we put our dot in the middle, the diameter has to go from one far side of the circle and draw all the way through to the other side, going through the middle. We're basically drawing a line of symmetry so that we can fold that circle in half and have no overlap. That's the diameter. The next really important word we want to, or feature that we want to remember about a circle, is called the radius. The radius is the distance from that center point directly out to the edge of the circle in the absolute shortest route possible. So the radius, if we were to define this and write it down, we'll say the distance from the middle to the outside. As always, if you need to pause the video to write these definitions down, definitely do that so you've got something to refer back to. From here, we're going to move on with calculating the circumference now, because it's not perimeter, it's circumference. So let's crack on. Now, the circumference actually involves two very important things, and one of them is a new symbol. You may have seen it before, but it is actually that symbol there, and that is the symbol for pi. This value, this symbol here, is actually a number that you may have heard will go on forever without repeating and without ever stopping or cancelling out. This is a huge number of decimal places, and if you look at your calculators, you'll actually see that there is an entire button dedicated to pi. And what this actually tells us is that there is a very special relationship between the diameter of a circle and the circumference of a circle. And if you were to cut a circle out and then cut a string that represents the diameter, try measuring it out. how many times you'll get that string around the circle. And I think you'll find that you'll actually get it 3 and a bit. So pi actually represents a number that is 3.1459 and so on forever. Your calculator will have that in there, but you don't have to worry about remembering that. All you need to remember is that symbol, and that means pi. So because we know that the diameter and pi have that relationship with circumference, we can actually simply do pi times our diameter. So in this circle here, if our diameter is 10 meters and we want to find the circumference, we are going to do pi times 10, which in this case is going to equal 31.459 and so on the rest of the way. That is circumference. From here, let's move on and go on with area. So again, we're going to use that symbol, that pi symbol. It is very important, except now, instead of using the diameter, like we did before, what we're actually looking for now is the value of the radius. Now, if this radius happens to be 10, let's say 10 centimeters this time, what we've actually found out is that if we do our radius times our radius, which will give us 10 times 10 centimeters squared. If we take that 100 centimeters squared, which would be here, and we repeat it again throughout that circle, what we actually get, we've got another version here, we've got all this excess that's around the outside that we actually don't need. And when we chop all of that excess off, what we actually find is the same relationship between radius squared and pi as we had for diameter and pi, which is, remember that 3.1459 times our radius squared, or times our radius, which we can represent as r squared. So to find area of a circle, we are going to do pi times radius squared. In this case, 10 times 10 being our radius squared, 3.1459 times 100 will actually give us 314.59 centimeters squared. Remember, that squared is super important to tell the reader that we're looking at area. But that is properties, perimeter, and area of a circle. As always, if you've got any questions, write them down, bring them into class. I'm sure your teacher in front of you has a whole bunch of activities for you to do so that you can get really good at this, really confident, so you can go into the assessment and know absolutely what you're doing. All right, I will see you in the next video.